What if everything that feels like it's falling apart is actually God putting the pieces together in your favor? Life doesn't always make sense. Sometimes the road gets rough, doors close, and prayers seem to go unanswered. You might be wondering, where is God in all of this? But what if I told you that right now, in this very moment, God is rearranging everything in your favor? What if what looks like a setback is actually a setup? What if the struggles you're facing are not signs of His absence, but proof that He is moving behind the scenes? Too often we measure God's presence by how easy life feels, but faith isn't about what we see. It's about trusting that even in the silence, even in the waiting, even when nothing makes sense, God is still in control. The enemy wants you to believe that it's over, that the delay means denial, that the pain has no purpose. But the truth is, your story isn't finished. The pieces are coming together. The things that were meant to break you are actually building you. Today, I want to remind you that God's timing is perfect. His plan is greater than you can imagine, and everything you've been through is leading to something beautiful. So, don't give up. Don't lose faith. Stay with me until the end of this message, because I believe that by the time we're done, your heart will be stirred, your faith will be renewed, and you'll walk away knowing that no matter what it looks like right now, God is working it all out for your good. Let's dive in. Divine providence. God is sovereign and actively working behind the scenes, orchestrating events for our good, even when we don't see it. Romans 8:28. There is a profound truth that every believer must grasp. God is not a passive observer of our lives. He is sovereign, all-knowing, and actively involved in the intricate details of our existence. From the moment we take our first breath to the final moments of our earthly journey, His divine hand is at work, orchestrating events, aligning circumstances, and guiding us toward His perfect will. Even in moments of uncertainty, confusion, and suffering, God is moving behind the scenes in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Often we judge our lives by what we can see, feel, and understand. We measure progress based on what is tangible, and when things do not go according to our plans, we assume that God is distant or inactive. But the truth is that God's ways are far beyond human comprehension. He is not limited by time or bound by circumstances. What appears to be chaos in our eyes is, in reality, divine order unfolding according to His perfect plan. Consider the story of Joseph, a young man who had dreams of greatness but found himself betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. To any outsider, it would have seemed as if Joseph's life was spiraling into endless misfortune. But in the unseen realm, God was working. Every setback was actually a setup. Every betrayal was part of a divine rearrangement. Joseph did not know it then, but God was positioning him for something far greater than he could have ever imagined. When the appointed time came, the very prison that once confined him became the platform for his elevation. The very people who sought to destroy him were the ones who unknowingly fulfilled God's plan for his life. In the end, Joseph was placed in a position of power, not just for himself, but to save many lives during a great famine. This is how God works. His providence is not random, it is purposeful. What looks like an obstacle today may be the very thing He is using to align you with your destiny. The job you lost, the door that closed, the relationship that ended. These are not signs of divine neglect, but divine intervention. God is moving, shifting, and arranging all things in your favor, even when it does not feel like it. There is a reason why Scripture tells us that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. Notice that it does not say that all things will be easy, or that we will always understand the process. Rather, it affirms that every event, whether joyful or painful, is being woven together by God into something good. The disappointments, the delays, the difficulties, none of these are wasted. They are all pieces of a greater masterpiece that God is crafting. It is important to understand that divine providence does not mean life will be free of trials. Even Jesus assured us that in this world we would have trouble, John 16:33, but he also promised that he has overcome the world. This means that no matter what comes against us, no matter how dark the night may seem, God has already prepared the way for our victory. The battle may be fierce, but the outcome is already secured. His sovereign hand is upon us, and he is turning every situation, every challenge, every hardship into something that will ultimately work in our favor. Sometimes we are too focused on our immediate circumstances to see the bigger picture. But God sees the end from the beginning. What we perceive as delays are actually divine preparations. What we interpret as rejection is often redirection. Just because we do not see the fulfillment of his promises today does not mean that he is not working. There are things happening behind the scenes that we cannot yet perceive. Doors are being prepared, hearts are being softened, and divine connections are being arranged. Faith is trusting that even in the silence, even in the waiting, God is still working. It is believing that his plans are not just good, but far greater than anything we could ever conceive. When we surrender to his sovereignty and embrace his providence, we begin to see life differently. We no longer fear the unknown, because we know that the one who holds the universe also holds our future. We do not allow discouragement to take root, because we understand that God's delays are not his denials. We walk with confidence, knowing that even when the path is unclear, he is guiding our steps with purpose and precision. To trust in God's providence is to release control. It is to let go of the need to understand everything and rest in the assurance that God is orchestrating something far beyond our comprehension. When we truly grasp this truth, we no longer live in fear of the future. We no longer panic when life takes unexpected turns. Instead, we stand firm, knowing that the same God who created the heavens and the earth is the same God who is moving in our lives today. So, take heart, even when you do not see it, even when you do not feel it, God is rearranging everything in your favor. His timing is perfect, his plans are unfailing, and his love for you is unshakable. Trust him, for he is at work in ways you cannot yet imagine. Life is not stagnant, it moves in seasons. Just as the earth experiences the shifts of winter, spring, summer, and autumn, our lives also go through divinely appointed times of transformation. These seasons are not random or meaningless. They are designed by God for a specific purpose. Sometimes we walk in seasons of abundance, where everything seems to be flourishing. Prayers are answered quickly, opportunities appear effortlessly, and the favor of God feels tangible in every area of our lives. But then there are other seasons of waiting, pruning, and even suffering. These times test our faith, challenge our patience, and often leave us questioning God's plan. However, it is in these very moments that God is doing his deepest work. Nothing stays the same forever, and that is by divine design. In Ecclesiastes 3:01, the Bible tells us that to everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. This means that whatever you are going through right now is not a mistake, nor is it permanent. God is shifting, molding, and preparing you for what comes next. But here's the challenge. We often resist the seasons we do not understand. When God begins to shift things in our lives, we cling to what is familiar, even if it is no longer serving his purpose. We try to hold on to relationships he is calling us to release. We try to revive opportunities he has already closed. We struggle to understand why doors that were once open are now shut. But the truth is, divine transformation requires letting go. Consider a tree in autumn. The leaves that were once vibrant and full of life begin to wither and fall to the ground. To the untrained eye, this might seem like a loss, but in reality, the tree is preparing for renewal. If the leaves did not fall, there would be no space for fresh growth in the spring. This is how God works in our lives. There are things He must remove in order to make room for what is to come. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the dream that seemed to fail. These are not punishments but divine preparations. God knows what is ahead, and He is rearranging everything accordingly. When God is shifting us into a new season, it is often uncomfortable. Change stretches us and growth is rarely painless. Think about Joseph once again. His life went through drastic shifts, from being a favored son to a slave, from a prisoner to a ruler. Each season had a purpose. If he had remained in his father's house, he never would have reached the place where God destined him to be. His journey was filled with betrayal, false accusations, and years of waiting, but every step was a necessary part of the transformation process. The hardship was not meaningless. It was preparation. In the same way, when we find ourselves in difficult seasons, it is easy to become discouraged. We question why God is allowing us to go through struggles, why prayers seem unanswered, why things are not happening according to our timeline. But we must understand that God sees the full picture while we only see a fragment. What we perceive as delay is often divine protection. What we see as a setback is actually a setup for something greater. There are seasons of waiting where God teaches us patience and trust. These are the times when we pray, but the answers do not come immediately. We step out in faith, but doors remain closed. In these moments, it is tempting to believe that God has forgotten us, but nothing could be further from the truth. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It is in these times that God builds character, strengthens faith, and prepares us for the weight of the blessing He is about to release. If we receive the promise too soon, we may not have the maturity or wisdom to handle it. Then there are seasons of testing. These are the times when our faith is stretched, when trials come unexpectedly, and when we feel like we are being pushed beyond our limits. But just like gold is refined in fire, our faith is purified through trials. God allows these moments not to destroy us, but to fortify us. The pressure you feel today is producing the strength you will need for tomorrow. There are also seasons of breakthrough, where suddenly everything begins to align. Doors open, prayers are answered, and God's favor is evident. These are the moments when we see the fruit of our faithfulness, when we realize that everything we endured was leading to this divine appointment. But even in seasons of blessing, we must remain humble and remember that it is God who orchestrates every good thing in our lives. Understanding the seasons of transformation helps us trust God more deeply. It reminds us that no season lasts forever and that God is always working for our good. If you are in a season of waiting, know that preparation is happening. If you are in a season of testing, know that refinement is taking place. If you are in a season of loss, understand that pruning leads to greater growth. And if you are in a season of breakthrough, use it to glorify God and prepare for what's next. No matter where you are right now, God is at work. He is shifting, arranging, and preparing you for the next phase of His divine plan. Trust the process, for the one who controls the seasons is the same one who holds your life in His hands. Life is filled with moments that seem unfair, painful, and even cruel. There are times when we face rejection, loss, and hardship, and it feels as if the weight of our struggles is too heavy to bear. In those moments, it is easy to wonder if God has abandoned us, or if He is even aware of what we are going through. But what if the very trials we are facing are not obstacles, but divine arrangements? What if what looks like a setback is actually a setup for something greater? The Bible makes it clear that trials are not meaningless. They are often the very tools God uses to shape us, refine us, and position us for His purpose. Throughout Scripture, we see this truth repeated over and over again. Joseph, who had dreams of greatness, found himself betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. Every step of his journey seemed to take him further from the destiny God had promised him. Yet, in the unseen realm, God was orchestrating everything. The betrayal led to Egypt, slavery led to a position in Potiphar's house, imprisonment led to an encounter with Pharaoh's cupbearer, and in a single moment, Joseph went from being a forgotten prisoner to the second most powerful man in Egypt. The very trials that seemed to work against him were, in reality, the stepping stones to his destiny. The same principle applies to all of us. The pain we endure is never wasted. The trials we face are not without purpose. God allows certain challenges not to harm us, but to prepare us. A diamond is formed under immense pressure. Gold is refined by fire. A tree's roots grow deeper during storms. In the same way, our faith is strengthened through adversity. If everything in life came easily, we would never grow, never mature, and never truly trust in God. But it is in the dark seasons that our character is developed. It is in the moments of hardship that our dependence on God deepens. Jesus himself said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." John 16:33. He never promised that life would be without difficulties, but he did promise that he has already won the victory. This means that no matter what trial we face, it is not the end of our story. God is always at work, rearranging things in ways we cannot yet understand. Sometimes what looks like rejection is actually divine protection. We cry over doors that close, over opportunities that slip away, over relationships that do not work out. But what if God is removing certain things from our lives to make room for something far greater? What if He is blocking paths that would lead to destruction? What if what feels like failure is actually a redirection towards something better? We may not see it in the moment, but in time, God reveals that every no was making space for a bigger yes. Other times, our trials are the process God uses to elevate us. David was anointed king as a young shepherd boy, but he did not step into his calling immediately. Instead, he went through years of hardship, facing Goliath, running from Saul, hiding in caves and experiencing betrayal. But every trial was a preparation. Every battle strengthened him. Every delay developed his leadership. By the time he became king, he was not just a ruler in title, but in character. The hardships refined him, shaped him, and prepared him for his destiny. We often pray for God to use us, to bless us, to enlarge our territory, but do we also embrace the process that comes with it? We want the promise, but do we accept the preparation? Before God releases us into greater things, He first ensures that we are ready. That readiness often comes through trials. The struggles you are facing today may be the very thing God is using to strengthen you for what is coming next. What feels like a breakdown may actually be a breakthrough in disguise. The enemy wants us to believe that our trials are a sign of God's absence, but the opposite is true. The presence of trials often means God is closer than ever. The enemy does not attack what is not a threat. If you are facing challenges, it is because there is something on the other side worth fighting for. The storm is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to reveal the strength that God has placed within you. The greatest testimonies come from the greatest tests. The most powerful victories are born out of the deepest struggles. When we look back on our lives, we will see that the very things we thought would break us were actually the things that built us. We will see that what seemed like defeat was actually part of God's divine arrangement. We will see that nothing was wasted, and everything worked together for our good. Faith is the foundation of our relationship with God. It is the unshakable confidence that He is who He says He is, and that He will do what He has promised. But faith is not just believing when everything is going well. True faith is tested in seasons of uncertainty, in moments of silence, and in times when life does not make sense. God's ways are higher than ours, and His plans often unfold in ways that we do not expect or understand. This is why trust is essential. We are not called to rely on what we can see or control, but to rest in the certainty that God is orchestrating every detail of our lives for His glory and our good. One of the greatest challenges of faith is learning to trust God when there is no visible evidence of His hand at work. The human heart longs for immediate answers, for clear signs, for a sense of control. But God rarely operates on human timelines. He works in the unseen, moving pieces into place long before we ever recognize His hand. When we do not see results, we are tempted to doubt, to question, to wonder if God has forgotten us. But faith is believing that He is working even when we cannot see it. Trust is knowing that He is leading us, even when the path is unclear. Abraham, known as the father of faith, was given a promise that seemed impossible. God told him that he would be the father of many nations, yet for years he and his wife Sarah remained childless. Everything in the natural pointed to failure. Time was against them. Logic defied the promise. But Abraham chose to believe. He trusted not in his own understanding, but in the faithfulness of God. He did not need proof to believe, he needed only the voice of the one who had spoken the promise. And in the fullness of time, Isaac was born. The delay was not a denial, the waiting was not wasted. God was fulfilling His promise according to His perfect plan. In our own lives, we often face moments where God's ways seem mysterious, even contradictory to our expectations. We pray for healing, but the sickness lingers. We seek direction, but doors remain closed. We step out in faith, but the path ahead is still unclear. It is in these moments that our trust in God is truly tested. Do we only believe when things make sense, or do we trust even when His ways are beyond our understanding? The Israelites faced this test in the wilderness. After being miraculously delivered from Egypt, they found themselves in a place of waiting, wondering, and uncertainty. God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, but the journey was longer and harder than they expected. Instead of trusting the one who had parted the Red Sea for them, many grew weary, complained, and even longed to return to Egypt. Their trust wavered because they focused on what they could see instead of the God who had already proven His faithfulness. The lesson is clear. Trust is not built on circumstances. It is anchored in the character of God. Jesus demonstrated this kind of trust perfectly. In the Garden of Gethsemane, as He faced the agony of the cross, He prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. In that moment, He surrendered completely to the Father's plan, knowing that the pain of the cross would lead to the glory of the resurrection. His trust was not in the absence of suffering, but in the certainty of God's greater purpose. Trusting God requires surrender. It means laying down our own understanding, our own timelines, and our own need for control. It means choosing to believe that even when life feels chaotic, God is still in control. It means recognizing that His delays are not denials, but divine preparations. It means accepting that what seems like a setback is often a setup for something greater. God is not asking us to have all the answers. He is asking us to trust that He does. He is not calling us to walk by sight, but by faith. He is not promising a life free of trials, but he is guaranteeing that he will be with us in every season. His ways are higher, his plans are greater, and his love for us is unshakable. Faith and trust are the keys that unlock the fullness of his promises. When we truly trust him, we will find peace even in the waiting, hope even in the struggle, and strength even in the storm. God's timing is perfect, but it rarely aligns with human expectations. In a world driven by instant gratification, where answers are expected immediately and results are demanded without delay, waiting can feel unbearable. Yet, throughout Scripture, God reveals a divine truth. He operates outside of human timelines, and his plans unfold in the fullness of time. This means that even when things seem delayed, when prayers appear unanswered, and when circumstances do not change as quickly as we desire, God is still in control. What looks like stagnation is often divine preparation. What feels like delay is often a setup for something far greater than we could imagine. The story of Lazarus illustrates this perfectly. When Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother was sick, they expected him to come immediately. They had seen his power and believed in his ability to heal. Yet, instead of rushing to their side, Jesus deliberately waited. To them, it must have felt like negligence. Their brother was dying, and the one they trusted seemed to be doing nothing. But Jesus was not ignoring their plea. He was aligning events for a greater demonstration of his glory. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Human reasoning would say it was too late, but in that moment, Jesus revealed that God's timing is never late. He called Lazarus out of the tomb, proving that even what seems dead in human eyes can be revived in God's perfect plan. There is always a reason for the waiting. Sometimes God is building our character, other times he is shifting circumstances that we cannot yet see. Still, other times he is positioning people and events in alignment with his greater purpose. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It is the place where faith is refined, trust is deepened, and dependency on God is strengthened. If we received everything instantly, we would never develop the patience and endurance necessary to steward the blessings he has prepared for us. Abraham and Sarah experienced this truth firsthand. God promised them a son, yet years passed without fulfillment. In their impatience, they tried to take matters into their own hands, leading to consequences that lasted for generations. But despite their missteps, God remained faithful. At the appointed time, Isaac was born, not according to human effort, but by divine decree. The delay was not a denial, it was a divine orchestration, ensuring that when the promise was fulfilled, it would be clear that it was by God's power alone. David was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but he did not immediately step into the throne. Instead, he faced years of trials, battles, and even persecution at the hands of Saul. It would have been easy for him to doubt the promise, to wonder if God had forgotten him. Yet through every hardship, God was preparing him. The trials strengthened his leadership, deepened his faith, and refined his character. By the time he became king, he was not just a man with a title. He was a man who had been tested and proven. The years of waiting were necessary, for they shaped him into the leader God had destined him to be. Jesus himself walked in divine timing. There were moments when people tried to force him into action before his appointed time, yet he always responded with patience, knowing that everything must unfold according to the Father's plan. At the wedding in Cana, when his mother urged him to perform a miracle, he responded, "My time has not yet come." John 2:04. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he surrendered completely to the Father's timing, saying, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. Every step of his ministry, every miracle, and even his journey to the cross were guided by divine timing. When we understand that God's timing is perfect, we learn to trust instead of worry, to wait instead of rush, and to believe instead of doubt. The enemy tries to convince us that God has forgotten us, that the delay means denial, that what we hope for will never come to pass. But faith reminds us that God is always on time. He is never early, never late, but always right on schedule. When the time is right, He will open the doors, release the blessings, and bring the breakthrough. Our responsibility is to remain faithful, to trust even when we do not understand, and to walk in obedience even when the path is unclear. Seasons of waiting are opportunities for God to work in us before He works for us. They are moments where our faith is tested and our trust in Him is deepened. Instead of resisting the waiting, we must embrace it, knowing that God is preparing something greater than we can imagine. He is aligning people, circumstances, and events in ways beyond our comprehension. When the time is right, His plan will unfold, and we will see that every delay had a purpose. Every waiting season was a season of preparation. Every unanswered prayer was making way for a greater fulfillment. God is never in a hurry, but He is never late. His timing is perfect, and His plan for us is always worth the wait. God is always at work, even when we do not see it, even when we do not understand it. He is orchestrating every detail, shifting circumstances, and aligning every moment according to His divine purpose. No season in our lives is wasted. Whether we are experiencing a time of waiting, a time of testing, or a time of transformation, God is using it all for our good. Every trial is preparing us, every delay is refining us, and every challenge is molding us into the people He has called us to be. When life seems uncertain, when doors close, when prayers feel unanswered, we must remember that God is rearranging everything in our favor. His ways are higher, His plans are greater, and His timing is perfect. What seems like a setback is often a setup for something far beyond what we could imagine. Our faith is not based on what we can see, but on the certainty that God is faithful. So let us hold on to His promises. Let us trust that He is leading us even when the path is unclear. Let us surrender our timelines, our doubts, and our fears, knowing that He is working all things together for our good. When the time is right, we will look back and see that every struggle, every tear, and every moment of waiting was preparing us for something far greater than we ever dreamed. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. My prayer is that you leave encouraged, strengthened, and reminded that God is in control. No matter what season you are in, He is working behind the scenes, shifting things in your favor and leading you to His perfect plan. May you walk forward in faith, trusting in His timing and embracing His purpose for your life. May His peace surround you, His love sustain you, and His grace guide you always. God bless you abundantly.